Is there like one little thing that we can open with here that is like a little bit silly? That isn't me talking about Paul Parry's jacket. Shocking anecdote that was.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cute.
Yeah.
Because you could have given me 1,000 guesses. I never would have said that. It would have said sub on it.
Yeah. But I will say this. I mean, we're recording it. You can choose to put it in. I wouldn't put it in. I absolutely wouldn't. But my best ever football like merchandise I've had off a player or a manager in this case. Last day would have been whatever 2016-17 season or whatever. Russell Slade's last game in charge of Cardiff. Last game of the season. I go with my mate and I said, today I'm going to get Russell Slade's hat. He always wore a hat. I was like, I'm going to get Russell Slade's hat today. And they were like, shut up, you won't. I was like, I'm going to get Russell Slade's hat. Because I know they're going to walk around the ground. And as he walked around the ground, I went down the front. I was like, Russell, can I have your hat? Can I have your hat? And he looked at me.
How old are you?
Oh,
2016. Okay, yeah. So you're like, yeah.
I'm like 22.
Okay.
Russell, can I have your hat? And he's looking at me like, what? I said, your hat. He's like, okay. And he frisbeed it in the air, and I caught his hat.
Oh my god!
I think it's like
I've manifested before I knew the word existed.
And I went up to my mate, and he was like, I can't believe it.
I thought you were going to tell me you had like a fishing rod, and you sort of like went down,
his
just
hat off.
reeled it in. I do have one other story from my trip to Flint to go watch Carnarvon.
Yeah.
So, like at the Flint ground, you're obviously quite close to where the players are throwing the ball in from where the sort of fencing is. And there was this boy, he couldn't have been older than like 11, and he sort of saw one of the Carnarvon players going to take a throw in and moved really, really close to him. And the steward said like, "Oi, knock it off." And so the boy moves to his friends who sat behind us, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe Stuart told me to move."
Stuart.
And the guy was like, it's not Stuart, he's a steward. And then the guy goes, yeah, it's not like Stuart Little. I absolutely lost it listening to this. I thought it was the funniest thing in the entire world, because I was just like, it was fantastic. Just an amazing moment.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Concourse. We're here again. Another international break is upon us, and it's an interesting one this time. So I've got Megan Feringa back once again. Congratulations for making the cut. No slight on everyone else who did it last time. They were all brilliant, but you are back. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited. My second cap. Back doing it again. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And a debut for James Cuff. James, you'll probably be known to people of Alternative Wales fame for all you're writing about music in the magazine and your podcast, the Welsh Music Podcast. So welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Yeah, this podcast is up and underway now. So we've got a few episodes in the bag. So it's been good. So we can get them released on Terrace.
Yes, looking forward to bringing that in. We've got a really interesting international break, but I think before we get into that, we should probably talk about the previous window, a win against Liechtenstein and a defeat in Belgium, albeit a very interesting game. Megan, we're 3 months on. It feels like a lifetime since that game.
Yeah.
How has it aged, do you think, the Belgium results? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How are you feeling about it?
I think you have to sort of remind yourself about the emotions, not of that kind of roller coaster that was the Belgium game. And then you sort of walk away being like, yeah, that was a fantastic experience, albeit probably not the result that everyone sort of felt maybe Wales deserved after going back the way they did. But I mean, I had to go back and pretty much like reread my tweets to re-experience what my emotions were like. But it was just an insane game. But I think as well, it was Bellamy's biggest test so far in his time as Wales manager. And I'm disappointed that Wales didn't at least get a draw, because I think the fourth goal going in was slight like defensive naivety when you think about it. I mean, leaving Kevin De Bruyne as unmarked as he was, I think just considering all of the hard work that Wales had done, it just sort of felt kind of, sort of a self-inflicted wound, if you will. But you still have to give so much credit to that, because to be 3-0 down with 27 minutes on the clock and to fight back the way that they did and to play the way that they did, I think it's one of those performances that you need to look at as a more holistic thing than necessarily the result.
Yeah, James, I think the word bittersweet sums it up perfectly, that game. And like, I've thought a lot about it, and I think it's a pretty, not disastrous result, but it really hinders our chance of winning this group. And, we're all here to try and win the group and go to the World Cup. That is the aim. And getting something out of Belgium away was top of that list, especially after they went and dropped points in North Macedonia. But then the performance was so encouraging. It's a bit like, I just don't really know how I feel about it, because I think it's a bad thing, but it also isn't.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing that it feels like it's a bad thing as well. And, Bellamy said at the end of the game that, he was disappointed in the defeat, but also that, he didn't want it to be a sort of another plucky Wales, good performance, under pressure. So I think that he also talks about building a library in players' heads quite a lot. And I think he'll take a lot of positives from that game. And like Megan said, that sort of roller coaster. I was doing the same thing with my WhatsApp group, and we 1-0 down. I thought, now we can get back in this. Then 2-0. And then I think Brooks should have scored after a 2-0.
Yeah, I think so.
But then when it was 3-0, I was like, we're not going to get this back. And then them to come out in the second half. And I thought Bellamy's been sort of so balanced in those first 9 games. Like, how would he have reacted at half time and wherever he said? And I think it was positive, seemed to do the job. And even you could hear in the words of Sorba after the game, some of those messages had landed, and they weren't giving us the credit we deserved or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird thing to look back on, because that June international break, it's always a weird international break. It's a couple of weeks after the season. Some players are playing all the way up to it. Some players haven't played competitive football for a month. And then you fast forward to the September window, where we're at, on the brink of now, and players have moved clubs. Some players are playing in different leagues, some players are playing in different countries, and the season is it's underway, but it's not really underway. We don't really know too much about, what players are like in their new clubs. A lot of Wales players have been on the move. Kiefer Moore, Nathan Broadhead, Danny Ward all joining Wrexham, which is exciting. The likes of, I've gone blank on someone else who's had a transfer.
Aaron
Ramsey's gone to Mexico.
Yeah.
He played his first game the other night, which is Sorba Thomas has gone to Stoke.
Having a great time in Stoke.
You need to keep giving me more, please.
Jordan James possibly might be going to Wrexham. Looks like it's pretty much.
Is that happening?
Yeah, £4.3 million, wasn't it? They beat out Parma for the.
Yeah, I did see that he was linked to Parma. So we come into this window with players moving, players sort of hitting the ground running. Brennan Johnson scored last week for Spurs. It feels like a lot of unknowns, and we've probably got the most unknown game to go with it. The squad, we don't really know how it's going to look. Is Bellamy going to throw any surprises in? Ampadu a doubt after starting really well for Leeds, but then picking up an injury. And then we've got Kazakhstan away. The first time we're ever going to play in Kazakhstan. It's essentially Asia. It's a long trip. We don't know much about them. Obviously, we had a glimpse of them in Cardiff at the start of the year, and they didn't really look up to much, but it's a 9-hour direct flight. It feels like that could be. I don't know how much that plays into things. What do you think, Megan? I know in this day and age of sports science as it is, and the preparation would be good, but still, it's a huge unknown, isn't it?
It is an unknown, but I also think, in the modern age, it's incredibly different to taking 7 buses and having to take a canoe over the water or something like that. I mean, you are talking about these players are probably going to have some sort of wraps around their legs and all these crazy things to be able to make sure that they can function. And, they also do this with the championship season. These are players who play 2 to 3 times a week as well. So I think personally, I don't think the trip is necessarily going to be the weird aspect of this. I think it's more the atmosphere of being in Kazakhstan that could maybe throw off a few players. I think Wales historically, I know it's kind of silly to always look back at history and say, well, it definitely repeats itself, because it doesn't always do it. But, playing away in a country like that, what is the atmosphere going to be like? Is it going to be hostile? How do the players react to it? I think to me, that's more of the factor that we should be slightly concerned about. But under Bellamy, I think he's managed to keep these players feeling as if they sort of are operating in this bubble. And he's got them so mentally focused that if there is a circumstance in which the players won't feel impacted, I think it would be this. But I think that's quite a hopeful way of looking at it, and I'm quite a hopeful person, so...
Yeah, you are, and that's positive. James, I spoke a bit about the players that, have had busy summers. is there anyone that, has moved this summer and maybe started the season quite well that you're excited to see in this international break? Because I think, there's a few people that have had really positive moves. Kiefer Moore's already scoring, Is that something that he can bring into this window?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think, if you look at the uncertainty of Ampadu, and what that means for the team. And I think Kazakhstan also, I don't really have enough knowledge of their team.
Not good enough, James.
But I did read that they struggle with sort of second balls on set pieces. So it's a good opportunity for us to, knock balls up to Kiefer, maybe change the way we've been playing a bit. Brennan started really well as well for Spurs. So, we've been waiting for him to translate his sort of club form into country. And obviously he scored against Belgium.
Probably one of his better games.
One of his better games. Hopefully that can continue. I did think of another couple of players who've moved on.
Sorba's had a great start.
He's from Fire.
Five goal involvements. It's more goal involvements than anyone else in the championship. I mean, as Stoke City are top of the table at the moment, and it's pretty much because of him.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be phenomenal, especially if y'all were talking about, like if you're going to knock balls up to Kiefer Moore and then have a willing runner on either side of him. And if you're having Sorba Thomas and Dan James, you're sort of laughing. And then obviously you can have Brennan Johnson too, who I think at the moment I still have Brennan Johnson coming off the bench and being able to play and hit him at the back post, but that's just personally like how I see it. I know that's probably not how other people are going to see it. I doubt Bellamy's going to play him there. Like I bet you he will start him, but that's how I would do it.
Yeah, Sorba's an interesting one. We sat here in June and I remember saying at halftime in the Belgium game, I think he probably needs to go off. He's had a stinking first half and then he was fantastic in the second half and he's quietly become one of the most important players in Bellamy's team and joining Stoke and enjoying his club football again, which is something he probably hasn't done for a while. I think that can only benefit us.
Yeah, definitely. I think he joined on the Saturday, didn't he, in between the two games?
Was,
and I think if he would have waited until like the Wednesday or something like that, he probably could have got a few more couple of quid each week. But I think he's definitely... I don't really know what went on previously and he sort of seemed to apologise for his behaviour coming into the squad and stuff, but he's definitely been a shining light under Bellamy.
Yeah. So the game itself, Kazakhstan, it's probably a must-win, Megan. We've got to win these games if we want to have any chance of winning the group, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think after dropping points, losing to Belgium, you have to go in and win everything. And I think if they had drawn against Belgium, maybe you can have a little bit of wiggle room. But maybe that's kind of what Wales has needed as well. I think Wales always tend to do better when they are up against the wall, if you will. And I think that this is one of those moments where Bellamy's going to have to just get them into gear. And I know he still wants to play the style of football that he wants. But again, away to Kazakhstan, I think if you are playing poorly, just lump it up to Kiefer. I don't care. But again, that's not how Bellamy plays. But I also don't think Wales need to play that way. I do think that under Bellamy, they've shown an ability to play with the style that he wants to and execute the way that he wants to. And I still think they'll do that. But like you say, it is must win. They need to win this because you don't want to end up dropping down to third in this group.
Yeah, and I think the game itself, it's such an interesting, like the dynamics of going to somewhere like this, all of those things. And we're still talking, Bellamy is over a year in the job now, and we're still talking about sort of the way that there's still a lot of firsts for him. So Belgium was the first time he was playing a top nation. How does he respond? And then within that game, it's the first time we're 3-0 down. How does he respond? Pretty well. And now it's the first game back after a defeat. How do we respond after defeat? Does he change anything? What does he do? I don't think there's anything he really needs to do, James. I don't think, like, you watch those Belgium game and maybe the Liechtenstein game probably isn't the best game to rewatch if you like. There's nothing that I'm thinking going into this. I hope Bellamy does this. It's just like, just make sure we just carry on doing what we're doing. Yeah,
definitely positive front foot. I think he talked about patience, and I think he talked about maybe the fullbacks in a bit too narrow in the last game. So maybe that's something that they can work on. I think going forward, there's been no problems whatsoever, and that free flowing football that they played against Belgium, just hopefully that's the way they start in against Kazakhstan. The only thing that might change things, I think, is like an artificial turf in Astana.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting it's artificial. Yeah,
that could change. But like Megan said, Bellamy's going to be super prepared. But that's the way the ball bounces, impact on ankles, knees, and those sort of things. Whether that's going to make a difference or not, I don't know.
And he's probably rented an artificial pitch for the last 2 months and been like practicing dropping balls onto it and been like, right, how does this all work?
Yeah. How's the rubber crumb level compared to
ratio?
But I mean, like, the good thing with this is, in previous sort of times we've gone to countries for the first time. I'm thinking back to like the 90s when we were one of the first teams to go to Moldova or Georgia, and we got absolutely hammered. And they've just coming off the back of being in the Soviet Union and the fall of the Soviet Union. This isn't really that. Kazakhstan, albeit is miles away, it's they're not going to be staying in a shithole hotel. They're going to be in nice hotels. The ground's lovely. It looks, it's one of the best in the region. There is the artificial turf. It's not going to be too hot. It feels like, other than the distance, there's not like many challenges, and we should be okay. I'm trying to convince myself, maybe.
Yeah, I think we need to get to a point somewhere where we don't have these fears, have these worries going into something that should be a certainty. Kazakhstan haven't got a good sort of home record. I think they sort of surprised everyone when they beat Denmark 3-2.
Yeah.
But I think, what the sort of shift that has come since Bellamy's been in charge from like a lot of things, particularly tactically, like Megan said, is second to none. So I think we should go in positive and smash them.
Well, that's brave to say, James, at this point. But something you said then about like Bellamy's preparation, and like it does fill you with confidence, doesn't it, Megan, that like we can go into a game like this, which is an unknown, but knowing that Bellamy and the team, it won't be an unknown to them, because I'm imagining he's been watching hundreds of games of Kazakhstan and studying their players, studying I bet the whole trip will be planned down from a T, when they're going, where they're staying, what they're doing. I don't know if they will, but I remember in previous years, teams who sometimes travel that far, they stay on like UK time zone, so it doesn't like mess them up too much. It's nice to have that confidence that the preparation will be done properly, and I think that is great when it comes to Wales, because in the past that very much hasn't been high on the list of certainties.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure the last 3 months Bellamy has just been sat there contemplating Kazakhstan. I mean, maybe he's even tried like variations of the food. I don't know. Like there's like the degree to which this man will have prepared for all of this is probably insane. To be a fly on the wall would just be fantastic. Also quite frustrating too, because like imagine watching that level of like diligence and be like, what do I apply that level to in my life? And realizing that there is nothing in my life that I apply that level of diligence and preparation to. So no, I mean, I think to me, he's one of those managers who, if you sort of surround yourself with, you can almost like put your legs up and just be like, well, don't need to worry about anything. This man's got everything under control. And that's also nice for these players, because going away with Wales, it's that cliche of it's always a nice time. You like the environment, you like the people that you're around, but then to have that additional sort of comfort of knowing that the preparations are all there. You're going to go in, there's a slideshow analyzing like the blood pressure of every opposition player. Like you just feel good,
Yeah, it's like just slipping into, comfortable shoes now for them probably, isn't it? They've had the tough camps to begin with, but they're probably used to it. They're probably used to the level of preparation, and I think there's probably an excitement. I'm excited for it to be back, because, it feels like it's been such a time since that Belgium game, and so much has happened, within the footballing world in that 3 months. But then this window, it just feels so weird because it's that one qualifier and a friendly, the dynamic of that. But I guess that does mean that we can go all in on this Kazakhstan game, because if we had a home game the following Tuesday, or, the following Monday it would be, then the whole experience of Kazakhstan is different. We can go all in, the travel, all of that. It won't take it out of it. We won't have to worry about the home game. It's a friendly. Obviously, we want to have a good performance and win. But I think the fixture gods have been quite kind to us with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's no resting players for the second game, like coming off at 60 minutes or wherever, would usually be the case, and any concerns going on. I think the only challenge that comes with this sort of split shift, as it were, from this window is Bellamy always talks about sort of like building that sort of squad for the window, but it's such a unique window, having that sort of it is a must-win game up front, followed by a friendly where ideally you'd want to sort of bleed some new players, some people we haven't seen before. But yeah, so that'll be interesting, the squad selection when that comes out.
Yes, I should note that by the time this is out, the squad will be out, so you will know. We don't know the squad at the moment. We're ifs and buts. We don't know. I think the big question mark at the moment is probably Ampadu's fitness. Yeah. Obviously, Daniel Farker has said that he won't be back until after the international break. Does that mean that he will feature in the international break, be in one game? It's all a bit ambiguous. He is so important to us, Megan, but we have been without him for a lot of Bellamy's tenure. So it's almost like if we're going to lose one of the big players, not that I want to lose Ethan Ampadu, but maybe it's okay because we've dealt with it already.
Yeah, I mean, he's only featured in 4 of the 10 matches that Bellamy has had so far. And Bellamy has found ways to navigate and to kind of utilize the rest of the squad, which has been great. I think if you were going to choose a match for Ampadu to not be here for, or like even a window for him not to be here for, Kazakhstan away is maybe one of them that you would probably say, fine, okay, that's all right.
Considering what's on the horizon in October.
And I think as well, like this is the 3rd knee injury that has taken Ampadu away from the Wales squad. Actually, if you go back and look at his stats, it's not since 2019 that he's missed successive international matches for Wales. And then before that, it was 2017. And then like if you go to his transfer mark, like there's barely a red mark anywhere on his chart. So like, you know, I think it's also really important to think of him as a human being, as a player that needs to rest and recover. And I know that there's going to be Wales fans who think, well, if he might be back fit after the international break, why doesn't he just go away with Wales? Well, do Wales really absolutely without a doubt need him for this match? Or is it better to make sure he recovers fully? This is, like I said, 3rd knee injury, and then make sure that he's better for the next international break when arguably Wales are going to need him more. And I think that's a really important way of looking at it, because without Ampadu, I don't think Wales play the way Bellamy really wants to play. They're at their best when Ampadu's on the pitch, but you also need to think about the long term, and I think Bellamy's going to be looking at that as well. And there's no player who's more devastated to possibly miss out than Ampadu.
Yeah, and he was so good for Leeds in that first game of the Premier League. It was just like, here we go, you know.
Yeah.
But that's being a Wales fan. We don't tend to. It's never a window where we just say, you know, right, we got everyone. You know, everyone's fit, everyone's great, brilliant. There's always something. I think that'll do for Kazakhstan. We'll discuss Canada in the next part. I think we should talk about Canada now. An interesting friendly against a bit of an unknown team for us. I think we've definitely played them before, but it's been some time since we played them.
2004
in the race course.
At the race course, 1-0. Paul Perry scored.
Someone's done their research.
I have.
Paul Parry.
Yeah.
And we just a little sidebar on Paul Parry. Big player for me in my youth. Obviously played for Cardiff. He was fantastic. And on the last day of Ninian Park, I used to sit in the lower grandstand, so by the tunnel, and all my youth I wanted something off a player, whether that be a shirt or whatever. And on the last day in Ninian Park, Paul Parry gave me his jacket, and I thought, fantastic. And I got home, I looked at the jacket, and instead of having like PP on it, it just said sub. Gutted, devastated. So that whenever I think of Paul Parry, I think of that. So
no wonder he gave it away. Like imagine coming home and be like to your wife and just be like, "Can you wash this for me? I really want to wear it again." Like a reminder.
Like a 14-year-old boy, and it's like this huge player issue sub jacket. So. Yeah, that is a sidetrack. Anyway, Canada. Back to Megan. You're from North America.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you the Canada question.
Okay.
An interesting team managed by Jesse Marsh, obviously known.
Who I obviously know because he's American.
Because he's American, of course. So you're on the same wavelength. I know Rodri, who does the weekly podcast with us, is a Leeds fan and despises him because I think he doesn't believe in wingers, which is a weird thing, especially for America. I thought they'd have loads of right wingers. Sorry. You can tell that this friendly, it's nice to talk about a friendly after a serious qualification game. It's a good test because they're going to be hosting the World Cup. Players, you know, they're not the Canada of old who used to be, not necessarily a minnow, but you know, they qualify for the last World Cup. Yeah. They've got really good selection of players. It's a good test for us to see where we're at against maybe a nation outside of Europe. Yeah,
and Canada too, like they're sort of working towards, like you say, the World Cup. There's a lot of players that are trying to tell Jesse Marsh, I'm worth it. I want to be in the squad. And Alphonso Davies isn't going to be there. I think he's still kind of recovering from a long-term knee injury, and Jesse Marsh has already said he's not going to be there. There's another centre back, I think that won't Moise something. He's not going to be playing. But a lot of the players that he has in contention are players that are going to want to tell Jesse Marsh, I'm here, I'm willing to play, I want to play for the World Cup, include me in your starting 11. And so I think for Wales it's going to be a really good test because it's not just going to be one of those friendlies where you see sort of like players roll over, not really care. Canada have something to fight for. So I think in that sort of guys, it's going to be a really good test for some of like Wales's younger players and Wales's kind of fringe players, because they'll be fighting for the exact same thing to Bellamy, to say, well, we also want to prove ourselves to be in contention for a starting 11. So I actually think it's going to be quite a fun friendly, and I don't think we normally say that about friendlies, but I think it could be really fun. I've actually met Jesse Marsch before. He's a really nice guy. His family's really sweet. And I actually really hate that everyone hates him, because I really need an American manager to be loved over here.
Yeah.
And there's so many American managers that are not. And I'm still going to kind of hope and pray that Jesse Marsch can do good things. Obviously not against Wales, but I do want him to be loved, because I need that kind of validation of Americans in this game and in this sport.
I think he's probably held in slightly higher esteem than Bob Bradley.
Yeah,
So,
which I mean... is
not hard, to be fair. James, something interesting that Megan brought up, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, because obviously they don't have to qualify. It's probably the most competitive a friendly we can have at this point, because this is their preparation for the World Cup. They are going to be playing these games at 100%. Well, maybe not 100%, but like for a friendly, it's a good test, and I think we're all accepting that it's not going to be a first 11. There'll probably be some players who need minutes and stuff that we'll see, but this is I think as far as friendlies go, we've had a lot more pointless friendlies than this one. I think there's going to be something we can take from it.
Yeah, definitely. I think you mentioned earlier, there's a bit of uncertainty with players like Connor Roberts not playing, so we're going to need someone to fill that void. So maybe that's someone like Capaccio from Cardiff, who who's had sort of time in the squad and looks like he's going to join up with the squad. It'd be good to give him minutes. Lawler as well, looked like he might come into the squad. So it'd be good to sort of see what that next sort of generation potentially of the Welsh defence looks like. And people who potentially need minutes as well. So, Rambo come on for his debut in Mexico, I think, last night. So, not that he needs to prove anything, but maybe it's a bit of a sort of maybe a bit too soon for him in Kazakhstan, particularly with, as we mentioned, the artificial turf. But and it's a nice little mini away day as well to Swansea. So something nice for the fans. Yeah,
it's weird because I haven't been to a game in Swansea that hasn't been like a bubble trip for some time. I get to go to Rossi's before the game.
Yeah.
This is huge. This is what it's all about. So Megan, we've saw James mentioned a couple of players there. Is there anyone else you think that you'd like to see in this game and maybe have a little look at, and something that we can take forward?
I'm gonna fly my Lewis Kumas flag forever. But yeah, it's Lewis Kumas for me. That's the player that I'm desperate to see. I'm desperate to see him do something special. I mean, that's kind of the only one that really comes to my mind, mostly just because I'm so on board that train, which this is going to come back to haunt me at some point. Someone's going to keep a receipt of this in 5 years and be like, what does she know about football? This guy sucks. But I'm hoping that that's not the case, and then I can clip this up in 5 years and be like, I told you.
Surprising, he didn't go to Wrexham as well, didn't he?
He went to Birmingham. So I think that's probably a good move for him. Get a lot of football, and he's clearly a talented boy, and I think Bellamy thinks highly of him. So I think maybe that is the sort of game that he'll thrive in. It's not against a minnow. It's someone, this isn't Gibraltar at Wrexham.
No.
Although whatever it was 2 years ago, this is a proper test. And
I think Nathan Broadhead too. Like, I know he's obviously at Wrexham. He's not someone that I would constitute as a youngster, but I would constitute him as a fringe player and someone who is still trying to kind of prove to Bellamy his worth. And I think his move to Wrexham is going to be a really, really important one. On an emotional level, I love the story of him going to Wrexham. I think that's wonderful that Wrexham, where they are now, are finally having Welsh internationals play for them. It feels like forever that we've had this number of Welsh internationals playing for Wrexham, but for me, Nathan Broadhead, I've loved him since he was in the 21s and the 19s. Moving away from Everton was a really big decision for him, but it feels like he's finally kind of coming into himself, and I would like to see what he could do against a Canadian defence that is good, but is also kind of also rotating their normal centre back pairing. I think there's one of them that's missing, so they're going to have this 19-year-old kid that did really well in the Gold Cup. I think he's going to be in contention to possibly play, so someone like Nathan Broadhead could look at that and say, ooh, there's an opportunity here to exploit. So I'd like to see him play as well.
I was really excited about Broadhead when Bellamy came in. He was one of those players I thought, this is a Bellamy player, because he was very good on the page. Obviously got that goal out in Split and sort of made him a bit of a legend, and then he had a difficult season with Ipswich in the Premier League. You know, couldn't find his fitness, couldn't really break into the team. So I think he's one of those players I think I would have maybe looked at in June and thought he's probably a man who needs a fresh start and to get back into contention, because I think he's such a natural finisher. He's one of those players that's in the box. I'd be really confident that if the ball dropped to him, he'd find the back of the net. And I think he's also a good presser. I think he's better. I don't want to do Liam Cullen or Mark Harris dirty, but both of them have featured quite heavily for Bellamy.
Yeah.
But I think Broadhead's a better footballer than them both.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. I don't think I'm saying anything too controversial, but he hasn't been in favour as the other two, probably because he hasn't been playing a lot. He hasn't, he's had those injuries. He has been in and out. So maybe this is the sort of game that he can come in and go, right, I can feature in a Craig Bellamy's Wales side and play a part between now and hopefully the World Cup next year, because there's a lot of football still to be played and a lot of people who can make themselves heroes. And that's a good shout. Anyone else, James, springs to mind?
The only one's the obvious Bianchieri, the custody battle.
The custody battle of Bianchieri, yeah. Obviously very quiet on that front, but it'd be interesting to see if Canada do have a look at him, whether Bellamy has a look at him. He was quite outspoken last time saying he isn't ready.
He's ready, yeah.
I'm only going to pick players who are ready. If he wants to go and play for Canada, then so be it. It does feel a little risky.
It does. It's a lot of... you still see him sort of interacting on Instagram with Wales players. Still got Cymru in his bio, I think. But yeah, they can both call him up for the squad, and if they did, that would be... Yeah, that's got to be a record.
Yeah, and see whose bench he's on when he comes out.
He's just going to go sit in the middle with the referees.
Yeah.
And then just like whoever ends up putting his number up first. And he's like, damn it.
Yeah, who's
going
to sub him on first? That would be, yeah. He's an interesting one, obviously very highly thought of. I think Man United have said that he can go on loan this season. I saw... Cardiff had been linked with him, but I don't know if there was any truth in that. So, yeah, an interesting one, and it just gives that game a little edge, because what if he does play for Canada? Or we lose? It's a difficult one. I understand where Bellamy's coming from. I don't think you can just hand out caps and call-ups. That's not how it works. If we're picking players on sentiment or future-proofing, I think you've got to earn a Welsh cap.
This is probably a cul-de-sac, but do you think, like, Bellamy is a man who prepares himself so much, right, for all these different things, and we've established that. Do you think he's spoken to other managers to see how Bianchieri reacts to, like, criticism or the way that they coach him? Like, there's certain players where you can yell at them and that gets the best response and that elicits that, and then other players, if you yell at them, like, it doesn't work. So I wonder if he's spoken to anyone. I mean, this is total hypothesis. I am not saying at all that Bellamy has done this, but I wonder if he has maybe spoken to a few managers that have coached him, been like, oh, this is how you can get the best out of him, and if that's what Bellamy is attempting to do. I don't know. It'd be incredible if that's how he's goading him to possibly be ready for Wales. I wouldn't put it past him, but also I'm just curious.
He seems to be doing a similar sort of thing with Colwell as well, though, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's got that longer term, like he seems to have with loads of players.
Yeah.
Even in Belgium, he's like, oh yeah, Jeremy when I was 17, he says that quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I think he's taken that similar sort of approach, and I do agree that those caps need to be earned, but I still want to sort of just cap him and bags him.
Yeah, because he...
Just in case.
It's a friendly. It's hard to look into it, but I think we want to do well, obviously, and I keep saying it's a good test. And James, I think it not being a UEFA nation does give it a slight edge that maybe, if we were playing a Slovakia or, I don't know, a Czech Republic, that does give this game an edge and an interest that it might not have. And then you look at our next game, which is a friendly as well against England, which also has a very different edge. I think they've done quite well in booking these two friendlies.
Yeah, I think as I said, there's things that Canada are going to want to take away from this game. But yeah, I think it's the first non-European nation that we've faced under Bellamy.
Yeah.
So that preparation, hopefully going into the World Cup, fingers crossed, and not falling flat like we did in Qatar. With facing challenges that we haven't faced before. So it's just it's just one of those ones that's going to be nice. Not going to worry about it. It's going to be not neutral, but just something you don't have to worry about too much, which is always good.
I'm excited for the potential of Canadian fans coming over, because they don't sound like Americans, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to conflate them with America, because I think that would be the worst possible thing that I could do. But I'm excited to hear people who sound slightly like me, and I think that'll be fun, because I remember when I first
that's a stretch, Megan.
I know they don't sound a lot like me, but they might they might say certain things that I kind of also say, and I'm excited to hear that. Like, it's fun when you can hear different accents come like descending onto a place. So I'm excited to see all the Canadians come descending
I'm
onto
sure
Swansea.
Quite a lot of Canadian diaspora around the UK that will probably descend on Swansea, and Swansea itself. Obviously, we mentioned it earlier. It's the first time we're playing there. Have you done any research on that? Because I forgot. It's been a long time. I think we played Croatia there probably 2012. Well, we played America there, didn't we, in COVID?
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
No. That doesn't count. I guess it's just, again, it's nice to maybe take it out of Cardiff, a game like this where the interest maybe wouldn't fill a Cardiff City Stadium. And yeah, just take it around to Swansea. As a Swansea fan, Megan, it's just nice that, a change of scenery.
Yeah, I love going down to Swansea. I think it's a fun day out. To do it in September, there's a 50% chance it could be sunny, which means people can go and like watch the beach and eat French fries. Watch the beach. Eat French fries outside and not sort of be huddling underneath rain jackets and rain umbrellas. That was really redundant. So yeah, I'm really excited. I remember like my first game going down, I was gonna call it a different name, but the Swansea.com, Swansea.com stadium. I remember my first time going down there, and it was just really special doing that walk from the station to the stadium. And yeah, so I think it'll be really fun and just something different for people too, because it is nice when you get to kind of play an international game and experience an international game, maybe not in the same setting as it usually is. It's just a different sort of feel to it. That said, I still want competitive games in the same place. I think that's a really great thing, but to have friendly sort of spread around, I do think is quite nice.
Yeah, I'm struggling to say any more about a friendly. I don't know about you. Have you got any more thoughts, anything to say on Wales versus Canada?
That's it.
It's a friendly.
It's a friendly.
Part 3. I mentioned earlier that it's been a long break between the June international window and the September international window, but there's been a lot of football played, and obviously we've had the Women's Euros. Megan, you spent all of July, it felt like, in Switzerland.
Not just felt like it. I was.
You were, yeah.
All
a
of
long
July.
time.
All of July was in the Swiss mountains.
Yeah. So how was it? I mean, we'll talk about Wales in a bit, but just as an experience, the Women's Euros, it felt like every women's tournament now, it just feels like more and more, I don't want to call it a coming of age, because it's not a coming of age, it's like the next step, and it's just a really good spectacle. And we won't mention who won it, obviously. We don't want to talk about that, but just as a tournament, it was pretty good, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, and I think too, when Switzerland were named host nations for the Euros, there was a lot of controversy inside of UEFA and around Europe, because people felt like it was a step down from when England hosted, because you have this quote unquote big nation, historic nation with huge following for the women's game, which people sometimes forget that actually before the Euros, it wasn't necessarily the case. The Euros kind of expedited that kind of that following, if you will. And a lot of people were worried that when it goes to Switzerland, which is not known for its women's football, that UEFA were sort of taking a step backwards and not able to put on this huge tournament. And instead, every record was broken. I mean, from the number of away fans to the number of sold out stadiums, I think it ended up being all but 2 or 3 games were sold out. Getting tickets for the final was hard. Like, it was a really difficult thing, and that's what it should be. And I think that was the most exciting part, is some of these games that I went to, the fans were fantastic. I loved the Portugal fans. The Swedish fans were amazing. I don't know if people know this, but one of the players' boyfriends is actually kind of the number one ultra for the Swedish away fans. So like, that's, I mean, just a wonderful story in itself. But I thought the Portugal fans were absolutely class. I was there, not to sound glib about this, but I was there the day that we found out that Jota had passed away, and the fans, it was probably one of the most emotional games that I'd ever gotten to attend, and to see that just felt like such just like a privilege to see it. But then, I'd also constitute the Wales fans up there with some of the best away fans. I had so many Swiss friends come up to me and just random people who would talk about how much they loved the Wales fans. And I didn't for one second doubt that was going to be the case. But it was also incredibly nice because, this was Wales's first tournament that they'd ever qualified for. And I didn't know what the following was going to be like, because Wales away is a huge deal in the men's game. But I was one of the 5 people who were out there in Slovenia 4 years ago. So it was just really emotional to see the scenes, especially in Lucerne.
Oh, Lucerne was just...
It was just really special.
Yeah.
It was one of the only times that I cried. I mean, I cried 3 times at the Euros. 2 of them were from pure exhaustion, and because my train, the only train that got canceled, it got canceled in Switzerland. I just started tearing up on the platform. But the other time that I did cry was I was listening to the anthem, and I had a little tear. It was, yeah.
Yeah, Lucerne was particularly special. I sort of went to the tournament, no real expectation of what it was going to be like. I've been to women's games and, it's very different to the men's game, for better and for worse, in both ways. But it felt like there was like its own culture was forming around the women's team. And I think having that tournament and being part of the fan walk in particular, I remember thinking, God, if this was a men's game, this would be carnage right now, because it'd be heavy-handed policing, everyone would be hammered. I've been in those atmospheres, I've enjoyed those atmospheres, but it was a very different atmosphere, and it was just like a big carnival. And I think to be a part of that and leave an impact, and Wales fans do leave an impact, and the tournaments, we left an impact. The anthem was fantastic. We looked great on TV. We were loud. We'll maybe talk about the actual football shortly. But I think, James, you talk about legacies, and this tournament, I think, will always be looked at as being a huge turning point for not only the women's game as the actual football, but maybe more the culture around the women's game. I don't think there's any going back now, is there?
No, definitely. And it was something I noticed, even myself, I coach a under-7s girls football team, my daughter and her friends, and I caught myself sort of giving examples of male footballers as like, so and so does this, but they've not even heard of Gareth Bale. They're too young. But it's nice now that they've got female role models in the game, and Jess has always been there, but some other players. One of the girls has got the same hair as Fionn Morgan, and I think just that's been amazing, and the girls having their own sort of role models, it's not a new thing. It's something that's been coming as along, but it's definitely something that it feels like it's a line in the map.
Yeah, absolutely. We should talk about the football, Megan. It wasn't ideal. We knew we were up against it.
I mean, Wales were drawn into probably the worst group.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would have made it worse was instead of the Netherlands, it was Spain.
Yeah.
That would have been it.
How do you see it? Was it maybe, were you slightly disappointed that it went the way it went, or was that what was to be expected as to where we are now within the world of women's football?
I think 2 truths can exist at the same time. I think Wales were drawn into an incredibly difficult group. One of the teams in the group ended up winning the entire Euros, and France realistically should have gone further than they did. I think the Netherlands in any other group would have gone through to the next stage. So I think in that sense, like, there needs to be perspective, and Wales are not at that level yet to go and compete with those top nations, and that's fine. And this is what this tournament proved. I think what is disappointing is the nature of the defeat against England, but it's also the final game of a group stage that was not just physically draining. I mean, these are the team played in quick succession, but also emotionally draining. I got to the end of the group stages and I was tired. Like, emotionally, I was spent. And I imagine that the players were in a very, very similar situation. All 3 of their opponents, they all have professional domestic leagues. And I think that's also something that needs to be pointed out. Wales are one of the only nations at the Euros that did not have a professional league going on, or one that's even close to becoming professional. And that's nothing against...
We don't have a professional women's team.
No.
Club team.
Exactly, and that's really nothing against the Welsh system. It's still a work in progress. It's decades behind where everyone else is, and there's so much love and passion and growth that is going into it. But I think all of those factors need to be factored in. Now, was some of the football disappointing? Yes, it was. But then you see Jess Fishlock score the first goal, and it kind of just brings you a lot of joy. So I think there's room to be critical of some of the football that was played, but I think when you give it the whole context, it's really important to note where Wales is. Now, the next major tournament, Wales need to expect to qualify.
And I hope we do, because it's in Brazil.
It's a fantastic tournament. I would love to go, and I'd love to also see Wales fans there. But I think now, from this point, you don't want to see them lose 6-0 to England again. You don't want to see that. Or even 3-0 to the Netherlands. Because a lot of those performances, the reason that they lost was, barring England, where they, gave away a penalty so early in the game and the game was lost at that point. Against the Netherlands, the first half was really good. And then suddenly there's this sort of moment of naivety, 2 minutes, a minute before halftime. And then again, on the other side of halftime, there's another defensive foible. And then that's kind of where those moments were lost. And it's that consistency that Wales need to find. So if we're going to be critical, that's where it needs to be. I'm slightly disappointed that I didn't see a few other faces playing at the Euros, but Rhian Wilkinson is a fantastic manager. And I think Wales are incredibly lucky to have her, considering where Wales were about a year and a half ago, where suddenly we were without a manager. We had no idea what was going on. Rhian comes in, and I think she's done a phenomenal job with this team. And I think the Euro should only be remembered in a positive light. But I think within that positivity, you're allowed to be critical. And I think the team and Rhian Wilkinson would want people to. But all in all, it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And being able to cover Wales at it, it was like a dream come true for me. I absolutely adored it. And it made writing so easy. Writing about Wales, Jess Fishlock scoring the first goal, I was like, done. This is
your
awesome.
writing was good as well, Megan. I got to say,
you.
It was very good. I thoroughly enjoyed reading your bits from the tournament.
Thank you.
And somebody mentioned there, I hadn't actually clicked that obviously England did go on to win the tournament. And it does mean that in all of Wales's major tournament appearances, bar World Cup 2022, obviously men's and women's, we have lost to the eventual winner in it. Obviously 58, Brazil beat us, went on to win it. 2016, Portugal beat us, went on to win it. Obviously 2020, Italy beat us and went on to win it. Obviously that didn't happen in 2022, thank God, because it would have been England. And then England did beat us in the women's Euros and went on to win it. So that's something.
It's an incredible track record. I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
With runners up, technically.
Yeah, technically, yeah. What next then, Megan? What's next for the women's team? Obviously, qualifying for Brazil will start, I think, by the end of the year. We've got a friendly with Australia, which is a really nice, interesting game.
That's a really
going back
good one.
To Canada and playing different opposition. And maybe it's a marker of where we are, that a side like Australia, who know a lot of major tournaments, want to play us.
Yeah, it's a great experience. You look at the Australian team on paper, and they've got so many players who are playing in the WSL or in the NWSL, so it's a really, really good test. And this is, again, what Rhian Wilkinson wants. She just wants to keep growing, keep building in that ilk. She's incredibly like Craig Bellamy. But I think for Wales, it's about, trying to now transition into this sort of new team, because there are going to be faces that retire in the next few months. Kaylee Barton already has. And so
Is it the end of Fishlock, do you think?
I think we're probably getting to that point where it is. And I think Jess's legacy is, it's a fantastic legacy, what she has managed to do. And managing to, a little bit like Bale in that sense, like both of them got to go to a major tournament sort of in the twilight towards the end of their careers. And there's nothing more special than that. And for Jess Fishlock to score that goal, it felt so inevitable, but so perfect. And it was like the most beautiful piece of poetry that fate could have decided to say, okay, fine, we'll give you this. And it just felt wonderful. It was like Jess Fishlock and the world shook hands and was like, yep, solid. And it just felt really nice. And I loved that. But I do think now Wales are getting to a point where we're going to have to try to understand life without Jess Fishlock. And I truly don't know if we trying to fathom that is like trying to fathom a galaxy. It just doesn't make any sense. But Wales are going to get to that point. I think Rhian Wilkinson has got a plan in place. It's going to happen. But when that day does come, which I do think it's probably closer than people want it to be, it's going to be emotional. But it's also, on a football side, it's going to be quite difficult, because if anyone watched the games, Jess Fishlock was still the most creative and the most potent player on the pitch for Wales over and over and over again. And that's a player who's 38 years old. It's just phenomenal. Her longevity and her legacy is outstanding.
And the consolation goal against England, that sort of effort that she put in to knock the ball across at the line, just said everything about her and what she's been about. And I think she's still not willing to say that she's going to call it a day or not. She jumped onto the Rob Phillips and Blakey podcast the other day, and she shouldn't commit to it. But yeah, I think it's inevitable, like it was with Bale. It's just our next step.
And I think too, moving away from the national team, a next step for Wales was also the growth of the domestic game. And like I said, Wales are still trying to work towards a professional status, but you also want to do that and benefit the whole ecosystem. At the moment, you've got Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham, and TNS who kind of occupy all those semi-professional spaces, and you also want the rest of the league to be able to compete against them. And I think this is something that the FAW are truly looking at and trying to figure out, how do we grow the league as this holistic entity rather than just allowing teams that kind of have money to go in, spend a bit, and then get to Europe. And because you want this league to not learn from the mistakes of what's gone on with the men's domestic game, but be able to be its own thing, but also maybe not have to suffer the consequences of sort of learning curves and things like that they can't avoid. So I think for me, that's the big one that we go into, is how do we move from this space of, oh, great, the national team's an inspiration, to, no, the national team is something that occupies a space within the Welsh football fandom, but also the domestic game is growing off the back of it. So for me, that's the next big step. And I think the FAW are working really diligently to try to grow it.
Absolutely. Well said. And as inevitable as Jess Fishlock's career coming to an end is, I think this podcast inevitably has to end, as much as I hope it doesn't. We could go on forever like Jess. But before we do finish, I'm going to have to get some predictions from you both on the upcoming games. James, I'll come to you first. Kazakhstan away and Canada home. What are we looking at?
I did say earlier that we're going to smash them. So I've got to stand by that. And by smash, I think I have to say 3-0.
Yeah.
I can't see anything other than I think it was hope, other than a Wales win. But I just can't see us winning against Canada. I think, Megan's mentioned, the strength in that squad. They're coming over to fight for their place. We're going to be probably, bleeding new younger players, which is great. But so that disparity between the two teams is going to come to light. So maybe 3-1 to Canada.
Ooh, okay, interesting. Megan, what are you going for?
I'm going to go 3-1 to Wales against Kazakhstan. But that's only because I always feel like Wales are going to concede somewhere. Like I just, every time, like we could be 5-0 up, but it's like something's going to happen. And then I'd probably say against Canada, 2-1 to Canada. I'm
I don't like this, guys. I don't want.
It's not. I'm not going into being like, oh, Wales aren't nearly as good as Canada. I just think the circumstances of it, Canada are going to be just a little bit more on it than maybe, I don't know. I'm going to eat my words. And now I feel like I'm doubting myself.
You can see you changed.
Yeah. It was his eyes. He was giving me these eyes and I was like, oh no.
I'm going 2-0 and a 1-1 draw. I think a pretty respectable 1-1 draw. A game played in good spirits. That everyone comes away happy, like friendly should be. Because I believe our last friendly, we lost 4-0 to Slovakia. So anything is better than that.
And 1-1 with Gibraltar. Those
0-0.
were 0-0. Why did I think we were 1-1?
Yeah, that was low.
It's not even good enough that we didn't even score.
Summer of discontent.
Yeah, the summer of discontent.
I keep rewriting that Gibraltar game in my head. Like, you know how people like revise history? Yeah. I keep trying to make it better. I don't know why. It's almost like my soul is trying to make it better.
We always talk about that game on this podcast. For whatever reason, Gibraltar always comes up. It's scarred in my memory. And on that note, I think we should finish. Thank you both. It's been a pleasure and I'm looking forward to what comes over the next few weeks. International breaks always throw up all sorts. So thank you for getting me all excited for it. I should say that we are raising money to create a TIFO for the Belgium game. We've had agreement in principle from the FAW that it's going to happen. So we need your money to make it happen. We've got a design. It looks great. And I think we want to make that Belgium game special. It's going to be a huge, huge match as long as we do the job in Kazakhstan, which, isn't a done thing, but I do hope we smash them. And it would be amazing to make it work. And hopefully we can keep doing them in the future. And take the Welsh fan culture to the next level. So I'll put a link in the description for you to donate to that. So give us all your money, please. Thanks again, both.
Thank you.
And we'll be back after the international break to to talk about everything that happened, and hopefully it's going to be positive. See you then.